Long before Sandy Koufax threw Dodger Stadium's first pitch, and even before the first residents moved into Chavez Ravine, there were the Elysian Hills. Raised up by tectonic forces and carved into deep ravines by the ancient precursor of the LA River, these hills have meant many things to many people. Thousands of years ago, they were refuge from floods for the region's native Tongva Indians. Later, they were a source of timber for the pobladores of Los Angeles, and then a source of quarried stone soon after the city became American. In this episode, Lost LA explores the various ways Southern California's inhabitants have used the hills around Dodger Stadium. We'll look at an old lithographic view of LA, the vanished neighborhood of Chavez Ravine, and a massive construction project that reshaped the land. Much of Los Angeles' past is lost to history. Landmarks that once graced souvenir postcards vanished. Historic buildings and even entire neighborhoods bulldozed in the name of progress. And it's not just places we've lost, it's languages, traditions, people too. Communities conquered and then their conquest whitewashed. But there's one place we can rediscover these lost stories, the archives. Lost LA explores Southern California history by bringing these archival materials to life. Hi, I'm Nathan Masters, and this is Lost LA. People have probably always come to the Elysian Hills for their commanding views. One popular overlook is called Point Grandview, another, Buena Vista Point. And back in the 19th century, Angelenos scrambled up a summit named Mount Lookout. In this segment, documentary filmmaker Ben Sachs brings us the story of Mount Lookout and an 1877 view of Los Angeles drawn from its peak.
So this magnificent lithograph from 1877 is looking southeast across a little town of Los Angeles, pretty much at the very first moment when it is connected to the larger world of America.
So let's see what we have here. It's quite a spectacular image. Well, it says drawn and published by E.S. Glover. So obviously there's drawing involved. It's not a photographic image.
The lithograph is one man's view from the highest point. It was called Mount Lookout, 726 feet high.
And we're on the Mount Lookout Trail. It was the main path where everyone would come up from the Pueblo, Sonora town, and walk up to Mount Lookout and get a view out to the ocean and over the whole city.
This is most definitely done on a stone, on a limestone. There's no question about it, right? Because there was really no other way of reproducing things in terms of the fastness with an incredible amount of detail.
If you look very closely at the drawing, it's made up of just tiny, tiny little spots. And the surface of the stone is like a very fine-grained sandpaper. So when you're drawing on it, your grease pencil is just touching those tiny little tops on the top of the stone.
This grease crayon will create a mark and a memory on the stone, so you have to maintain the stone wet, then you build up a film of ink, you put it in a paper, you pass it through pressure, and it picks up the image.
These bird's eye views are not just a historical record. They have an iconic value. This lithograph exists in part to emphasize that Los Angeles is no longer a violent Western boomtown, that Los Angeles is a settled place that decent white Americans can settle in and make a home.
I don't know if at that time whether there were lithographic presses in Los Angeles. It could have been printed someplace else. There it is. Printed in San Francisco.
one of the reasons why the churches are so significant in this graphic. They show domestication of everyday life. The high school is important, shows the expansion of civic life. The railroads are given prominence, shows expansion of economic life. And the vastness of where the city might go is shown to offer the viewer a dream of a metropolis that would span the whole of what one sees in this panorama.
So we're pretty much, this is taken from a little bit further up. Wow, it's one of the greatest views in the city.
What's not here today is what's most obvious in this map. In 1877, Los Angeles was a very hilly city. Much of the elevation has been sliced away again and again and again until in many instances the hills are no longer there.
The saddest thing is seeing how the mountains have been carved up and all the connections we've lost, being able to walk to Chinatown or walk to the cornfield or just walk easier to downtown.
What might be said about the recent past in Los Angeles is erasing features in the landscape. Oddly enough, if you could extend the drawing further down, here we would be standing on the upper deck of Dodger Stadium. Dodger Stadium would be right here.
Most people come to the top of the park and look around and they take in the beautiful view of downtown and they assume it's always been like that. But the fact of the matter is when Walter O'Malley sited this park, he put the third baseline due north to get the best sun conditions on the playing field. And the only thing on the skyline at downtown was City Hall.
I'm sure they had no idea when the stadium was built in 1962 that suddenly in 2015 it would be the third oldest ballpark in the major leagues and just become an iconic part of the city.
The topography on the site is very complex. To actually grade the stadium into a bowl and then create these areas for parking. I don't know if you know, but the actual shape of the site is that of a baseball glove. As far as what we call the top of the park, that area was asphalt. And it was just basically another parking area about 10 feet below. So it was all down with crazy asphalt ramps going up to gates. I mean, it was clear to us that the view was awesome.
Mia Lehrer's team, with the renovations they did up at the top of the park, are trying to recreate this view. And it's quite majestic. It's great that the new ownership of the Dodgers are trying to embrace this.
When this park opened in 1962, one of the only deficiencies that Walter O'Malley himself saw in it was that there wasn't enough landscaping. And he immediately set out to plant thousands of trees and flowers. Well, we have tried to build on that, and we've taken over some of the area that used to be parking in order to create these pedestrian plazas.
These layers of palms would unveil these views and really celebrate the existing city skyline, but also the emerging city skyline.
The city of tomorrow will have many features of the city of 1877. We always are working with the materials of the past. We're always partly in the past in Los Angeles.
So reclaiming that top, people could have that amazing view of the city and really, for the first time, really be able to pause and enjoy.
Placeless locales become places through memory, the persistence of lives lived in that place. So Los Angeles to me is not an empty void. It's not a historyless place. It's not a placeless place. Los Angeles is crowded with history.